So we're here with Adam Platt, who's an expert microgreens grower, amongst other things. And he's going to teach me how to grow microgreens.
Indeed. Well, for most purposes, we'd have a scoop. But
See, there's a tool I don't have. That watering tool.
Sprayer bucket.
That's a nice watering tool.
Yeah. When you're doing a number of trays at a time, it helps be able to hose them down pretty quick.
Of course, when you have one or two trays, an old-fashioned watering can works just fine.
Likely. The dirt is very important. It's nice if it's got a little bit of moisture to it, a little bit of color. It shouldn't be wet at all, but it definitely shouldn't be dry dirt. It should have a little bit of moisture. So it's very basic. And you put down the dirt. You just want an even layer, somewhere between 1 and 2 inches, depending on what you're growing. This one's a little more than 1, it's about 1.5. We're gonna be planting some radish.
So some seeds grow deeper roots than other ones.
Yeah.
Or they like to grow deeper roots. So.
Yeah, some need more dirt. Some do better with more dirt. All right. Now, before we get too far into it, your special trays. Here, one tray with holes. And underneath it, it's actually 2 trays. This is where the water sits. And you got your little spacers that will let one tray sit on top of another and create a reservoir space for your water. And a
Those are just rubber spacers?
I took a piece of hose, 1/2-inch hose, and I just took a real sharp pair of shears, and I just started shearing off chunks of water piping hose.
That's real simple.
It is. And plastic, not metal. Don't.
Yeah, metal will rust and will put
corrode problems.
Corrode and put that stuff into the water.
You want the pipe that you're using to be the kind of pipe that would come from a garden store. Not like a hose that you would screw in like an exterior hose, like irrigation hose. Anyways, so that's
designed not to off-gas into the water.
So, cup O seeds. It's a 30 mil. This is a 1 ounce, standard little plastic medicine cup. 1 ounce of seeds. This is a 10 by 20 garden tray space. And then we very lightly, takes some practice. We just start a back and forth motion, kind of more in the wrists and the forearm than the hand. I don't know if there's a musical instrument you can equate to playing in that regard.
I don't play any bowed instruments, but it reminds me of bowing.
It does. I'm thinking violin.
Yes.
You want to try and get an even dispersion across the tray without areas where it's like a pile. You never want them on top of each other. They can be kind of close to each other. That's going to happen. But not on top of each other so much. Okay. There we go. And that's how we... I'm sorry, that was kale. I'll get a cup of radish for the next one. But in the meantime, here we go. All right, now, the water that you spray with. It's kind of important that when you're using it, whatever water you're using, shouldn't have chlorine in it. That will hurt your dirt. So dechlorinated or chlorinated water sources that you let sit open for a day or two, so the chlorine can off gas.
Yeah, my pour filter takes chlorine out pretty well.
There you go.
At least I can't taste it.
So after that,
So
just for good measure, put it into jugs and let it sit for 12 hours.
Let it sit so it'll evaporate whatever's left.
Yeah, because after it's done evaporating, you're going to add apple cider vinegar, which is unpasteurized and can be purchased in a lot of grocery stores and country stores.
Right, with the mother.
Exactly. That's stuff you want. It needs to be live. And you put about, per gallon of water, a cap.
Just a capful.
Yes.
Okay, so
Doesn't
just a
take much.
tiny little bit.
Yeah, you don't want much because it much beyond that, and you'll start to affect acidity.
Yeah, it gets acid pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Right.
But a capful in a gallon of water does great, and it puts an immune system in the tank that you'll be spraying all over the dirt, and those bacteria will populate.
Oh, it's all the good bacteria from the apple cider vinegar.
Exactly. It's all the bacteria that you want. It's the bacteria that break down mold spores and fungus spores. Plants love these bacteria.
So what's that sprayer jug called?
This is it's made by HDX. It's a 1 gallon handheld garden sprayer. But yeah,
Handheld pump garden sprayer.
made by HDX.
Okay.
Google HDX
It
garden
even has
sprayer.
a pressure measure there to tell you when it's over pressure.
Yeah.
Oh, you can adjust that to make
Relief valve. Yeah, well, you can pop the relief valve to depressurize and help you get the cap off.
Oh, okay.
It's supposed to have a spray nozzle, but Maria decided she didn't like it, and
So you're just spraying. One nozzle would spray a whole
missed.
bunch of mist, and that's spraying 5 or 6 streams.
This kind of creates a situation where the seed kind of gets put into the dirt about 1 millimeter or 2.
Oh, okay. It hits the individual seeds and pushes them in.
It creates enough of a disruption in the dirt that the water, basically, the surface tension causes it to sink into the dirt 1 millimeter.
Oh, okay.
You know. And now they're all glued in to the dirt. So in order to make sure that they will stay in the dirt as they germinate, and none of them will come up prematurely, they'll all come up at the same time and look like this, which is what you want. We have to apply equal pressure across the tray. The way we do this is with humidity domes, which can be purchased at any garden store. We have a few. You can also use, move around another tray. And the way we do that is we have to put a layer of protection between the seeds and the tray. So yeah, you can stack your trays. Wouldn't stack more than 3 of them though.
Well, I'm not planning to keep alive more than 2 at a time. So
2 stack of trays is great.
I'll cut one. Well, I'll probably plant one. I'll have one that I've cut. Yeah, they'll probably be offset by half the grow time, so that I cut one and then replant it, and a week later or half a week later I cut the other one and replant it.
You might have like 2 trays that are ready to cut, 2 trays that.
Yeah, but I think I only need 2 trays. A tray lasts me for 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll be 1 tray that's ready to harvest.
And how long they take, a week to grow or 2 weeks to grow?
10 to 14 days, depending on conditions.
Okay.
So you'd have 1 tray that was ready to cut that you wanted to eat. You'd have another tray that's.
I could probably live off of 1 tray and just cut it and regrow it, and the cut greens would last until it grew again. But having 2 trays would be better.
We'll go over the timeline of a tray.
Yeah.
In the meantime, this wax paper acts as the protective layer, and it will last for the 2 to 3 days necessary for these seeds to germinate.
Okay.
Much past that, the wax paper will degrade.
Right. The paper will
A mess.
get wet.
But for those 2 to 3 days, it'll hold up just enough. Might stick to the bottom of the tray when you go to remove it, but it'll definitely come off the dirt and the seeds and reveal microgreens germinated beautifully. So now we put tray top. Put that in there. And the dirt. And this will be the weight. That holds it down.
I mean, I could put stones in there, right?
You can.
So.
I would say no more than I've put down trays with as many as I've put up to 3 of these in a tray.
Okay.
Average railroad spike.
Yeah, they don't weigh very much. No, that's a very light stone. So it's just enough to have some pressure, not any real heavy pressure. Like that much dirt is enough by itself.
More than enough.
So are you planning that one too? You're gonna get 2 ready to germinate at the same time?
It's important to see the whole thing here. All right. So let's say you want to do something exotic. Because I'm going to give you a few extra trays and you can do exotic stuff. This is parsley.
Okay.
This is an herb. This goes into a class where you bury them. Okay. So, we take our
same container.
Yeah, not quite as much. Now each one's a little different.
Those like a little more breathing room.
But generally, you want to be concerned with surface cover because no matter how you mix them up, they all still have to break through the same plane. So they all have to share, no matter how much space the seeds take up 3-dimensionally, that 2-dimensional plane between dirt and air is what it is. So covering that plane is a way of determining whether or not we've put enough seeds in, even if they're not going to sit on the surface, which is different. It's a different procedure, and it's hard to know whether or not when you're doing herbs if you've used enough seeds, and you need to know if you're overcrowding. And that's tough to do. So we don't want to cause overcrowding. So it's enough to get the surface. Remember, herbs take longer time.
Oh, those seeds are a lot easier to see on the surface. They're a lot lighter color.
Yeah. It takes longer time to grow herbs. They want a little more space. Because you want them to mature. And they're tougher than microgreens. Less prone to infection. Way less prone. Okay, one end is a little heavy. There we go. Little air dispersion sometimes. No, that's actually perfect. I got it. I nailed it. Yay!
You've reminded me of the drawings of the West Wind.
So, now that we have that, a few seats on the floor. I don't like glue stragglers. Now that we have that, we mix. Nice.
Those want to be underneath.
Well, this is the first layer of dirt. Okay, so we mix, we make sure the uniform mixture occurs, top and bottom, all the way to the bottom dirt. Everything gets mixed up. So now that we know we have a uniform mixture, we flatten it back out again.
So the mixing is just for the herb seeds that like to be underground.
Yeah, you don't want to put them next to each other. That's the one thing that can cause them to have problems, is when they crowd each other. They like to have their own dirt space.
Okay.
They don't mind if their stems touch a little later in life. But as seeds, yeah. I learned that with cilantro. When I just did a big fat layer of cilantro and I didn't mix it into the dirt. And I covered it with dirt, it rotted. Now we cover it with more dirt. And give them another layer. They like to hide. We'll make sure it's enough that we can cover the first layer with maybe a 1/2 inch.
So how much can you reuse the dirt after you cut a growing? Is that, can you recycle that dirt?
It's going to take months. If not, it's going to take weeks, if not months, for the dirt to decompose, and that's depending on its conditions and whether or not there are worms present.
Oh, okay. So
The dirt,
as a practical matter, you throw the dirt away and get new dirt. And
we just created a situation where we always have a supply of new dirt.
okay. It's not like the earth has a shortage of dirt anywhere, so.
I will say that your dirt, it's important that it be of a decent texture. As far as, I mean, I can leave, you can have a big sample of ours. You can take a big container of it and use it to compare to other dirt. And,
Okay.
because that's kind of important. If these guys get bad dirt, they might not come up right. If their dirt is infected with crazy shit, it can get to you. So now that we have it covered,
Well, we could do a whole course just on dirt.
shit ain't kidding. So now that it's covered, we have to water it just a little, just enough. We have to activate them.
So these get less water than the other ones do?
Kind of not. They're herbs. It's different. So we need to activate the herb seeds. But with herbs,
So that water has a lot of chlorine in it.
it does. I'm not going to be putting it on the dirt. I'm going to be putting it below. And I'm going to be putting just enough, not enough for it to touch the tray.
Oh, so it's just going to get evaporated water on the
Basically.
bottoms.
Basically.
Right.
So we can handle that. So we put just enough in there to activate. And it'll fill the little trenches. Won't touch a thing. Again, extra big spacers, up to 1 inch is advisable. And this, herbs don't get covered. They have water, let them breathe, let the stems come up. Don't let the dirt dry out. You can't spray the top of it. If you spray the top of it, it seals the dirt with surface tension. It's no longer loose dirt.
So you have to keep the water underneath it, so you keep watering it from the bottom.
Herbs have to be watered from the bottom, essentially, is the overall message. Microgreens can be watered when you're planting them from the top, and you water the seeds directly on the microgreens.
Okay.
On the herbs, you have to water the seeds indirectly.
Well, I'll probably do just microgreens to start, and maybe I'll add herbs for something different after I become good at growing the microgreens. So.
Awesome. Believe it or not, it's actually a whole separate procedure for basil, but that's another day.
Whole separate procedure for what?
Basil and sunflower.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, so these trays, microgreens should sit with something on top of it for about 2 days at least. Just leave it alone. Don't touch it for 2 days.
Okay.
And then you come back and you can take a peek. And when you see that they have all put the first root into the soil and they have their first set of leaves trying to open up, then that is when you can take off the tray, expose them to light, and give them their first initial dousing. When they're little and their roots are exposed and you've just deployed them under the light, you want to spray them again with the apple cider vinegar water. And that is going to give them their first drink, and that's also going to put all those bacteria on their roots, which is a really good thing. And it'll make sure that anything that's cruising on the soil that's not supposed to be there is a snack for the bacteria. So that's important. Make sure to do that.
Right.
And that's pretty much...
and then you keep light on them and you water them once a day or something?
You water them when they need water, and they will tell you, and you'll be able to feel when the dirt gets dry. And also when they're older, it'll be less about the dirt being dry and more about keeping enough water in the bottom reservoir, because that's where the roots are, and they're really going to be drinking directly. So it can be a bit of a challenge to keep the older ones watered without getting the dirt too wet. But you'll kind of get the feel of it depending on how long you let your trays live for.